Hi folks, William Stillman, Psychic Medium, back in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania on a gorgeous day. It is actually President's Day today, and I am honored to be yet again in the presence of Major Ronald Roberts. Ron, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bill.
Again, I just want to give people a little bit of information, some background behind the scenes of what goes on in preparation for each of our events that we do on location. I don't know anything about where we are going. In fact, we all meet in the morning at the Walmart in Gettysburg, and then I drive separately from Ron to the various locations. So all I know is today we're going to a couple of indoor sites, which is something that we haven't yet done on the channel, and very much excited and looking forward to it, Ron. And anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I just anticipated February and Gettysburg being a lot more inclement than this. So yeah, very excited.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
It's good to meet you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is Tim and Hannah, our videographer and sound person.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I wanted to offer you the opportunity to come along with us if you wish to, if you wanted to participate.
I will just follow you quietly.
I mean, you're welcome to if you wanted to. If you wanted to, you know, be a participant in contributing to the discussion, or if there's anything that you can verify in response to anything that I might be saying. I know Ron's done his research.
I have.
Also, I have no idea where we are or what we're doing here.
That's okay.
If you would wish to, you're certainly welcome to.
Well, thank you. I think I will just be a silent follower.
Okay.
But that's how
Well,
I'm.
please feel free to speak up if there's anything that you can add.
As a silent guy, you want me to speak up.
I do. I do.
As long as we don't give any information beforehand.
No,
Yep, I don't want to know anything.
no.
Is this a barn originally?
It was. Correct?
I have to ask if there's been a history of quote-unquote activity here.
I would say yes.
Unusual activity here. And so, Paul, how long have you had the business?
I've been here 27 years.
So quite a little bit of time now.
Yes.
So what I'm wondering is if you haven't had people, staff, come to you to say, man, I just had something really weird happen. Or I thought I saw somebody out of the corner of my eye and I turned and there was nobody there. That kind of thing.
That happens.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's a basement or there's something underneath us, because I'm being pulled under the floorboards.
We can walk down there.
I'd like to walk down there.
Sure. So
because I feel as though that's where, for whatever reason, that's where a lot of the activity emanates, is from underneath us. I don't know if that would make any sense based upon what you know, or based upon what you know of.
Yeah, we can go down. So a bank barn is always going to be enter this floor from one side and the lower floor from the front. So that it'll be an easy walk.
Okay. But do you know if there's anything indicative of a heaviness, or if there has been more activity below us than above us?
I honestly don't
Based on
know.
what you know?
No.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right, well, let's take a look.
Sure.
And this is all part of the original structure down here?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to ask, if there were men that were wounded that were brought to this site. The reason why I'm asking is because as we're coming down the stairs into this area, I'm smelling something that's medicinal, so it smells like maybe it's an antiseptic or an alcohol smell. And I'm also smelling something that might be indicative of a smell that you might associate with wounds or blood or decay. So if that fits.
Yes.
The alcohol, I'll say, it could be, the bottom of the still comes out here, and that's where I collect high-proof alcohol. But it's not, not new alcohol.
Exactly. What
Okay.
I'm smelling is from years and
Old
years
alcohol.
past.
Okay.
Nothing in the present.
Good, okay.
But I'd also be willing to bet that this, to me, feels like there's a lot of activity that goes on down here that we might call paranormal. So I'm wondering if people, staff, don't want to come down here alone, or if there's a certain time of day or evening when they don't want to come down here by themselves, or if people have reported feeling as though they were being watched while they're down here. That's the way it feels to me. I'm asking, have you had any reports like that from anyone?
Well, I know that most of my people would say we have a great relationship with anything that's here, so they don't really have a fear of coming down. They prefer that the lights are on rather than off and so forth, just like anybody.
Okay. I'm seeing a saw, so I think there would have been amputations conducted here as well. Yes. There's one woman in particular that I'm picking up on, and she's coming in and out. So which part of the stairs would have been original, do you know?
So there would not have been stairs at all.
Okay.
In the original
she's
structure.
coming in and out, and I want to call her nurse, because that's how she appears to me. I don't know if you know who this would be or anything about who this may be. She is assisting in the bandaging, the application of antiseptics. She's also holding a bowl into which bullets or pieces of shrapnel are being placed once they've been extracted. Does that make any sense to you? Sure. Would that be possible? Sure. Okay. So she's sort of standing there at the ready as these pieces are being removed from men's bodies. I'm also wondering if there isn't someone of rather high rank or high stature that would have been here, that possibly would have been wounded here, because this was the closest place to be. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely.
In lieu of getting him to a different location where maybe they would have been better prepared or had greater supplies. Would that make sense to you?
Yes.
Ron? Okay. This gentleman, there's an arrogance about him. I want to tell you this. He has quite a reputation, I want to say, and quite a bit of bravura, I think. He feels very confident, and that he has been, did he die? Did he die here?
We'll have to look into
Was
that.
he I saw the phrase mortally wounded.
Right.
Is that a possibility?
It is definitely a
Okay,
possibility.
it's interesting to me. So it almost feels to me as though this was an insult that he had been wounded in the way that he was. So this is sort of counterintuitive, but it also feels as though there are amputations and operations that are occurring in the same space as them starting to, for want of a better phrase, stack up the deceased. Would that make sense?
Sure.
It almost feels like there's a concern about cross-contamination. And I don't know if that would make sense in terms of having those who are deceased, there's a lot of blood, I have to tell you. There's a lot of blood. And so I think the concept of the cross-contamination or the onset of any kind of blood-related malady affecting those who have open wounds but are still living is a concern.
Yes.
Would that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. And to your knowledge, that all happened here, in this space. It feels like there's a lot of despair here, a lot of despair, a lot of these fellows are very young boys, very young. And there's a sense of great despair and angst at never seeing my mother again. I won't ever see my mother again before I die. Yes. There is a Robert connected with this space also. Do you know who that may be in reference to? Robert, or I know your last name is Roberts, but it could be Roberts as a last name also. I'm seeing the name Roberts. Oh. Was anyone buried on the property?
Yes.
Out back?
A number.
All right. Because I just got a flash of that too. It's sort of like, well, in the interest of maintaining primitive hygiene, I think I'm wondering if they were temporary burials. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because the one boy that's dying who's saying, I'll never see my mother again, I think that he was collected afterwards, if that would make any sense. So it's sort of like, I don't know if they were shallow graves but it's, I think in the interest of honoring the deceased, but also there were clinical or hygienic reasons for it. They were buried and then exhumed.
Correct.
Okay. At family's request.
Absolutely
Okay.
right.
All right. Because that boy is back in this corner here. This Robert, or Roberts. And I also have to ask about the name Gerald, if that rings any bells.
Investigate that.
Okay, thank you. All right.
There is a list of all the people who were here. The Baltimore paper inventoried the hospital, so we have
The
a way
ones
to-
that were buried on the property. The
No.
documented burials.
That, I don't necessarily know the names of the ones that were buried. I know how many there
I know.
were,
Yeah, I
but
know.
I
Right.
don't have them.
Let me see if I can get a little bit more, and then I'll turn things over to you
Sure.
for any annotations.
Of course.
Or we can walk this, we sort of have an area over there and an area over here, if that makes any, unless you really like this area, in which case.
I mean, there's a,
Are you
there's
being
a separate
drawn
room.
to?
I'm actually being pulled to that corner back in here,
Okay.
back over here.
Right here or
Yeah,
on
right
the other
here.
side of the?
There's something on the other side of this?
There is.
Would there have been dead and wounded over there as well?
We we would assume.
Is that the belief?
this-
I'm wondering if I'm being pulled through the wall to the other space.
We would assume that every ounce of space, every inch of space
Okay.
would have been used for the wounded, yes.
Well, let's
the
go over.
bays, the way the bays would have been, you know, it's like when you put horses in a stall.
Right.
There's always a window and a door, and then there's a series of window, door, and then window, door. So
I feel like I'm being pulled through the wall, so if we could go to the space adjacent to this, but while we're here, is there anything that you wish to tell us about, or do you want to save that for later?
I think I'll save it for
Okay.
later.
All right, very good. If we were a ghost, we could walk through the wall.
We could.
Are those stairs original there, Paul?
not, the way that the two parts of the building were constructed, you know, animals down here in stalls, and then the connection between the upper and lower level was really just through the granary had a hole where you would pitch the grain and straw down.
Which is very common for a bank barn. You'd have to walk around to access the upper level of the,
So there would have been deceased and wounded in this area also.
Likely.
So this would be about where I was being pulled to in the other room, correct?
So that's just on the other side of that wall.
Okay, let me see if there's anything I can pick up here. And they would have been brought in through here, this way?
From the outside.
Right, okay. I feel like I want to call someone general. Would that make sense?
Yes.
So someone general, and is he the same person to whom I was referring before? Or I think they're two different people. I think it's two different people, actually. There's a reference to someone with an N-O-R to the name also. DOA. So there were some. Oh, so it was to remove them from the field even though they were deceased. They're brought here, some are dead on arrival, some expired en route. There's a lot of it's very chaotic, although there is someone who I want to suggest is taking the lead. I want to call him a doctor, someone who is taking the lead in trying to create some order. He's sort of the administrator having oversight in giving direction around what needs to happen, what needs to be where. There's a well on the property also.
Yes.
There's a well because I hear him telling someone, a woman, maybe it's the same woman, to go draw more water, draw more fresh water. This is beyond what I think anyone was anticipating in terms of the scope of the devastation, the scope of the injuries. These are all the original beams, correct? Because it feels to me as though the wood has recorded and retained everything that occurred here, which is so fascinating to me. It's an interesting concept, you know. That the emotion, the history gets etched into cellular composition of the wood itself. Curious. I don't know if you would know anything about a therapy dog. There's a dog that's kind of making the rounds, wandering through. And I'm also wondering about the name Alice, if that has any significance. I think that's about all that I'm getting. I think that's about all.
Shall I give you a little bit of information?
Let's debrief.
So, do you think we could take a walk over between this building and the house and
That would be
see?
good.
Huh?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
As long as William is
just
amenable.
before we,
Of course.
Absolutely, sure.
if that feels okay.
Absolutely.
I think the easiest route is back the way we came.
Sure.
Let's do that. And then I can give you allude to, and of course, Paul, maybe I'm sure will be mentioning some things as well.
All right, so where would you like us, Paul?
Well, I just thought he's not home, and I used to.
I don't want to trespass.
No, I used to own that,
Yeah,
and
Paul used to own that.
we're all good. But I felt like maybe just between here and there, you see if you pick up anything. It is. I like
Wait, is this Catherine's car? No.
Nope.
This is yours.
This is aluminum.
Okay. Did she get a car yet? Good. She liked it?
Would there have been an engagement, a skirmish, that direction?
Yes.
Right beyond from where we're standing. So that's why they were brought here, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's an area beyond where we're standing that is open, where there would have been an engagement, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that makes sense to me now why this would have been probably the closest location to be bringing people
Right.
who were
Absolutely right.
wounded. Okay.
It was the
right-
designated location.
Thank you. Right beyond.
Correct.
Okay. So this house was part of the property.
Correct.
So whatever animals were in the barn were moved over here.
To utilize the space.
Correct.
Yes.
To clear out the space. Any ideas about the name? I asked about the name Alice previously. Any ideas about the name Catherine?
Yes.
And who is Catherine?
Catherine is the wife of Henry Monfort, who was the owner during the time.
So she would have lived here? Because I'm seeing her looking out one of the second story windows. Did she die in that house also, to your knowledge? Do you know?
I don't know that. We could probably find
She
that.
lost a child herself, I'm also being told to say. I'm getting a bunch of female names.
Okay.
It's kind of odd. I don't know why. I need to ask about Margaret. I need to ask about Abby or Abigail. I don't know if any of those ring a bell or if they are in any way connected to the family or connected to anyone that may have been here.
And Henry and Catherine did have children that were here during the time of the battle, but we can check those names.
Check middle names also, would you? I'm wondering if one of the older daughters would have been a participant in some way. in so much as maybe helping to prepare meals or laundry, something like that. There is I almost want to say cauldron, where water is being heated. This would be outside. Outside
Outside of the house?
of the house.
Yes.
Do you know that if that's true?
I am not sure, but it certainly is highly probable.
So it would be to also disinfect. Established. I'm seeing the word established. And so I feel as though this location served as a hospital for the duration.
That's correct.
For the duration.
Yes.
Hence the water being heated in the cauldron. This is very much like the arrangement of the other farm. I'm blanking on the name now. Isn't that terrible? What is it?
I don't
Spangler.
The Spangler farm.
Spangler. Very much the same kind of setup, arrangement. So the deceased would have been out back, correct? But this is going to sound crazy, I almost feel as though we're standing on top of something also. Interesting.
I don't know where the 47 burials were placed. Do you know, Paul?
47, my goodness.
Yeah, I thought, I know they had them marked, and one was at the bottom of the barn bridge, one was by a tree. I mean, so I don't really have I'm sure it was all in that direction.
We may be able to find
Yes.
the location, the exact location of the barrels.
Rufus Weaver knew where
Yes,
they all were.
absolutely. Documented all of them.
I think that's about it for now, but if I get anything more, I'll chime in.
Sure. And Paul, feel free to jump in any of this. We're standing at the site of the Henry Monfort farm, which was, as you very well put, a designated place. It was a designated field hospital for Edward Johnston's division of the 2nd Corps of the Army of Northern Virginia, which was Richard Ewell's corps, and this was his division's hospital. And the Henry Monfort house is behind it. It was built in 1848 along with a barn by his brother Jacob and his wife Catherine, and their children lived here at the time of the battle. The traumatic nature of the situation, catastrophic, one might say. Every square inch of the barn and the house would have been used, and there were reported to have been 1,300 wounded men here at one time, which, if you can imagine, literally every inch of floor would have been used.
I have to ask also if, to this day, if there's original flooring in the house, if there are blood stains.
There is original flooring in the house, not very much, and as far as I know, there are no blood stains. The surgeon and his staff would have been in the house, and then everybody who had post-surgery would have been in the barn, and there was a shed in the back.
Absolutely. After the Army of Northern Virginia retreated back to Virginia, there were 450 men that were too critically ill to move, and they remained here under the care of a civilian surgeon named Dr. Whitehead. There were subsequently, or during the same time, 47 men that died and were buried on the property. That's documented. And after the war, circa 1870, the patriotic organizations for the Confederate soldiers which were primarily set up by females, they exhumed bodies and brought them south.
Interesting to me because I was getting a lot of female names, so I'm wondering if that's connected to that that group.
Possibly. And to my knowledge, because of the nature of Edward Johnston's division, a lot of those burials would have been taken, if not all, would have been taken to Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to add that I might have missed?
Nope. Sounds good.
Thank you for having us, Paul.
And of course,
Appreciate your time.
now this
Point, so the family's letter says there was a pile of arms and legs higher than your head outside the kitchen door. And although we know where the people were buried and then were later moved to Hollywood Cemetery, we don't know where the arm and leg pile is. So that someday may be a good thing to think about and look for. I would love to know.
I'm also wondering about Catherine. So what I'm being shown is Mary Todd Lincoln, and she is well known to have had mental, emotional health issues. And so I'm being shown her correlating to Catherine. Interesting. And so I'm wondering, remember I said I believe she lost a child also. I don't know if that was a stillbirth or a miscarriage or what that would have looked like. But I'm also wondering if what was happening here, remember in the barn I said this was beyond anyone's expectations in terms of the scope. I'm wondering if that caused her to have her mental emotional well-being even further compromised. So I saw her looking out of a second-story window by herself, and I wondered if she had died there. It just feels to me as though I'm wondering if she ever recovered.
she may or may not have, but you are right on the scope of this. The author Gregory Coco called it a vast sea of misery, and that's pretty well put.
Yeah.
What these civilians in Gettysburg had to contend with.
She would have, at least according to the letter, left and gone up Hunterstown Road up to Hunterstown once the Confederates no longer needed to use half the house when they needed to use the entire house. She was pretty much displaced and went 3 miles up the road to spend the rest of the time. Sent the hired girl back, but she did not come back until afterwards.
A hired girl, did you say?
Yes, they.
Interesting.
My wife's always outraged that these people would send the hired girl back.
Right. So I would be fascinated to know, for whatever reason, I'm fascinated to know more about Catherine and her backstory.
We can certainly do some research about her.
All right,
Absolutely.
fellas, thank you.
Yeah.